Good evening and welcome to the Township of Chatham Township Committee meeting for Thursday, April 12th, 2018. Greg, has adequate notice been given?
Yes, adequate notice of this meeting of the Township Committee was given as required by the Open Public Meetings Act as follows. Notice was given to both the Chatham Courier and the Morris County Daily Record on January 5th, 2018. Notice was posted on the bulletin board in the main hallway of the municipal building on January 5th, 2018. And notice was filed with the Township Clerk on January 5th, 2018.
Thank you, Greg. This evening, as part of our Volunteer Awareness Month and Appreciation Month, as it were, we have the privilege and the honor of welcoming the men of our volunteer firefighters here in Chatham Township and Green Village to present the colors. So if you would all please rise. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Solen?
Here.
Mr. Kelly?
Here.
Mr. Sullivan?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Swartz?
Here.
Mayor Ritter?
Here. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Mayor?
Yes.
Could we add the personnel topic to the executive session for the evening?
Is that any issue with that, Albert? Adding?
Is this about the
This is salaries.
Salary resolution.
salary resolution?
It's not on here. It's one to be discussed at a future meeting.
Well, generally, salary is not, unless you're talking about an individual employee.
We are.
If you're talking about an individual employee, that person should have been given a rice notice. And at this point, it's too late to give them a rice notice.
Fair enough. Okay, well,
Okay.
we'll postpone it and pick it up in another meeting. We got a first, we got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. All right, moving on now to our proclamation. This is perhaps one of my favorite meetings of the year. This is a tradition we started about 3 years ago. We all talk about what a great place Chatham Township is to live and raise a family and retire, as it were. And one of the reasons why Chatham Township is such a great place is because, as you look around the room here tonight, the men and women who volunteer their time on behalf of their community, take time away from their family and friends to do what they think is right and spend their time making this town such a great place to live. So on behalf of the entire committee, I just want to say again, thank you for your service, thank you for your dedication, thank you for all that you do. It's not often that you guys are recognized and given praises and pats on the back and shakes of hands and all the rest, but tonight is one opportunity for us, the committee, on behalf of all of our residents, to say to you guys, thank you very much for all that you do each and every day. Some of you volunteers for 5, 10, 15, plus 20 years. Others are new volunteers. You're role models to our community. And it's an opportunity for those families who just move into our community to look around and see what you do and emulate you in the future, and even our young children in schools when you go there and spend time in career days and the like and tell them what you do and all the rest. You're role models, and I just appreciate it tremendously. So without further ado, I will read the proclamation. Then we'll invite everyone up to the area here. and we'll do a photo, and we'll pass up on these proclamations. It reads, whereas the Township of Chatham is blessed to have hundreds of volunteers who deserve to be recognized for their hard work and dedication on behalf of our grateful community. And whereas these individuals volunteer thousands of hours each year, whether it's serving as a first responder, coaching youth sports, raising funds and awareness for our athletic programs, education in schools, or supporting our seniors, the environment, or serving our local government on a committee or board. And whereas the Township of Chatham is committed to encouraging community involvement among its residents, encourages them to put their hearts into volunteerism and to do their part to build a better Chatham. And whereas the Township of Chatham recognizes that volunteering improves our quality of life, increases community participation, and is one of the many reasons Chatham Township is a great place to live and raise a family. And whereas we are eternally grateful to the men and women and youth who utilize their time and talent to make a difference in the lives of others in our community. Now, therefore, I, Kurt Ritter, Mayor of the Township of Chatham, do hereby proclaim April as Volunteer Appreciation Month in the Township of Chatham and urge my fellow citizens to thank our volunteers and recognize them for their dedication and commitment on behalf of Chatham Township. So thank you. Now, if you all wouldn't mind coming forward, and as we do each year, we're going to pass the mic around so you can introduce yourself, tell us where you volunteer, and the like. All right, so we got a great crowd here assembled. As I said, we're just going to ask each of you, I'm going to pass the mic around. You can just introduce yourself. Tell us where you volunteer, how long you volunteered for, and anything else you want to add. I'll start on this end, I suspect.
Is this on? It is. My name is Tom Brown. I am a recent addition to the Library Board of Trustees. After waiting 6 years since having spent 6 years on the planning board, and I've been a happy Chatham resident for 40 years. So.
Yeah, Greg Borsinger. I'm on the zoning board. Been in Chatham for about 18 years. That's about it.
John Weston, zoning board for about 7 years, resident of Chatham for about 30.
Tony Vavona, chairman of the Board of Adjustment. Been on the board for 8 years, been chairman for 3, been a Chatham Township resident for 18 years.
Nicole Hagner, current chairwoman of the planning board for about, chairwoman for about 2 years, but I've been on the planning board for about 4. And then prior to that, I was the mayor and deputy mayor here in the township, and I was on council for 9 years.
Dot Stillinger, Chatham Township Environmental Commission Chair. I've been chair for about 18 years and on the commission for about 20, and we've lived in Chatham Township for over 50 years.
Maureen Kelly, Environmental Commission for about 3 years, and also just recently on the board of the Friends of the Library, and lived in Chatham Township for about 6 years.
Taz Brower, I'm on the Madison Chatham Coalition, and I've been in the township for 62 years, I think.
I won't tell you how long I've been in the township, but it's been a pleasure to be a part of the boards. I served on every board in this town but one, and I believe I'm going on my 30th year, and it's been an honor to serve the citizens of this town and to participate with the wonderful volunteers. Currently, I'm on the planning board with Nicole and a number of other people in this room. So thank you for your support.
Didn't say my name.
You didn't say your name.
Well,
Yes, you did.
I apologize, Bailey Brower Jr.
I'm Christine Chang. I'm a Board of Health member. I've been a board member for a year, and I've been in Chatham Township for 5 years.
I'm Peggy Nelson. I've lived in the township for 48 years. I started on the Board of Education. I've been on a number of boards, but right now I'm the vice president of the Library of the Chathams.
Glenn Nelson, Planning Board. Prior to that, I was on the Board of Adjustment. I was born and raised on the end of Washington Avenue. I've been in this town for 79 years.
I'm Jack Herring. I'm on the planning board, the vice chair. I've been on the planning board since 2007. I've been in Chatham Township 35 years now.
I'm Valerie Ulp, and this is my husband, Bob Ulp, and we are committee members of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention Community Walk that started 2 years ago, and we're proud to continue it again this year.
Anthony Laporto, Chatham Township Police Detective. I'm also a resident here of 4 years. I'm also a co-chairman of the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention, and we thank everybody for their support. Appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Christina Mott. I just joined the Environmental Commission, and I've lived in the township almost 2 years.
Joe Bezralian on the Open Space Committee in the township for 9 years. Humbling to be in this amazing company.
Kevin Doherty, member of the Green Village Fire Department for over 40 years.
Lawrence Filippello, member of the Green Village Fire Department for about 3 now.
Will Sherland with the Green Village Fire Department for 2 years now.
Mike Coyne with the Chatham Township Fire Department for about 6 years.
Patrick Shaysidik, a junior at the Chatham Township Fire Department, going on a year.
Jake Almgren with the Chatham Township Fire Department, been going on 3 years now, I think.
Andrew Schmucker with Chatham Township Fire Department, been on about a year and a half.
Lieutenant Mike Montero, been with the Chatham Township Fire Department for 5 years.
Lieutenant James Sacadato, been with the fire department for about 8 years now.
Matt Chase, captain with the Chatham Township Fire Department, been on about 9 years now.
Bob Evans, Chatham Township Volunteer Fire Department, been on the force for 45 years.
Mike Rawson, lieutenant on the Green Village Fire Department for 8 years.
Giovanni Casal, lieutenant, Green Village Fire Department for 3 years.
Alfredo Hand, been firefighter volunteer 3 years with the Green Village Fire Department.
Assistant Chief Sergio Villalobos, Green Village, about 5 years.
I'm Joe Korkich. I'm the captain of the Chatham Emergency Squad and been on the squad since 2011 and representing all our other members who are tonight in our regular business meeting in the township.
I'm Matt Gloglich. I'm the chief with Chatham Township Fire Department. I've been in the department for 12 years.
Mike, excuse me. Mike Zales, Green Village Fire Department chief. I've been with the department 18 years.
Jim Connolly, I'm president of the Board of Trustees for the Senior Center, trustee of Chatham Township Fire Department, and a trustee of the Chatham J.C.'s.
So again, thank you very much for all that you guys do on behalf of our community. At this point, Tom Salvis is going to snap a photo or two of us. I don't know, you get the wide angle lens on, I hope? Perfect. So if you all want to take a step in and we'll get everyone, make sure everyone's in the photo. Joe, come on, you guys. Committee members. Thank you very much again. We'll now move on to our reports. Start with Typhoon.
Yep. Okay, hold on 1 second. Okay. Report regarding DPW report, and I met with the DPW director, Rich Young, this morning, and the branch pickups are started. They started with the branch pickups already, and next week it's going to accelerate, and you will see a lot of trucks around the town starting next week. And opening day for baseball is this Saturday. And also our folks at the DPW started, they striped the girls and boys fields of lacrosse and soccer at Esternay, and starting to pave and repair some of the roads. And they're starting with the, lifting the basins and repairing the basins so they can, start paving right after that. And tomorrow is the first day of the mulch delivery. It will start tomorrow. And double ground mulch, I know people like that. And so they're preparing for the snowstorm tomorrow, 12 inches they expect it. I don't know if anyone else here heard about it. And so one more thing, they wanted me to make sure I convey that to you. And those branches and three pieces should be 8 foot long, and 6 foot long and 8 inches diameter. So I see a lot of bigger ones. They want me to just say this, and if you can, please make them a little smaller, and that would be great. That would be easier for guys to pick up and clear your yards. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Are those all the details we have about the debris pickup? Because obviously that's a matter that people have been talking about for a long time, since we had the end of the winter snows, and the questions are coming in fast and furious.
Sure.
So we want as much detail for the folks as we can get them.
I was told that 16th is the real date that they will start, but they already started, preliminary. They're picking up. I saw them on Noe actually yesterday. They were cleaning up the Noe Avenue. But third-party contract will be awarded, and it will be a lot of help to our DPW from third party. So 16th is the date. So you will see many, many more trucks on the streets.
Do we know if there will be a schedule or
I
neighborhoods
have
or? Monday through Friday. That's it. So no, I mean, honestly, if people just know Monday through Friday, that's good. But if they know they're going to start here on Tuesday and work their way
Karen,
out.
we still don't really have a grasp on how much stuff is out there. We did put notice out this week asking people to get the materials out there by Monday, because the 16th is when we're going to start the pickup. We're going to start probably on the west side of town and work towards this direction, and then we'll just kind of play it by ear as we go along.
And it could be weeks, I was told. I mean,
It's not gonna
I
be
expected
weeks.
2 days, 3 days, but apparently it's a lot of trees.
2 weeks.
2 weeks, okay. That's it, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Mike?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have any detailed reports tonight, other than to add my thank yous and congratulations to all of those volunteers that are working so hard on all the committees that make the town what it is. So, thanks again.
Thank you, Mike. Kevin?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. Just point out once again, the Historical Society will be doing a presentation this Sunday, 2 p.m. in the municipal building here. Author Laura Gellett will be discussing a summit story, writing Helen P. Curtis back into history. Helen P. Curtis is the grandmother of Pat and Martha Wells, and her travels in Europe in World War I, being stuck there, and then her travels in Europe, and it's about her life. Fascinating story. So please, as I've told you before, these are all fascinating lectures. Sunday afternoon, 2 p.m. If you're looking for something to do interesting, please come here. For those of you who couldn't get into our standing room only talk about the history of Dixie-Dale Farm, presented by Pat Wells, she will be presenting that presentation again on Sunday, April 22nd at 3 p.m. in the library, down at the Library of the Chathams. So a great presentation, and for those of you who missed it and are curious about the Dixie-Dale Farm and that whole area of town, please come out and to that lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Karen?
All righty. We are running out of time for our folks to respond to the Liberty House and Liberty Science Center trip that the Senior Center is running. Tuesday, May 1st is the date, but the sign-up is due $75, and the sign-up is due by April 17th. So it's going to be not a full day, but it will be 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. with lunch included at Liberty House and Liberty Science Center. So that will be great. Obviously, transportation will be provided, and the planetarium. Senior Center is also working on their shred event. Please circle April 28th. It's going to be at the Chatham Borough Railroad Station in the South Lot. That's 9 a.m. to 12. That's for all of your tax stuff that you can't wait to get out of your house from 7 years ago. So that's April 28th for shredding at the Chatham Borough Railroad Station, and also the Glorious Garden Tour. So please make sure you see the Senior Center website regarding signing up for the Glorious Garden Tour. Please save the date. Friday night, June 1st is the kickoff, and the beautiful tour will be Saturday, June 2nd in beautiful weather. Regarding the New Jersey American Water Main Project on Lenape Trail, they are just about done with that. Obviously, there will be a painful period of settling that pavement and that trench while the trench settles, and then they will repave it at some point. We've talked a lot about looking into the drainage situation on Lenape Trail. It's an old road. It's 70 years old, and I think maybe, you know, John Rushke and I have spoken about it. We may want to have some conversations about the drainage on Lenape Trail. So for those of you who have suffered through it, we're on it. Chatham Township Environmental Commission has a couple of exciting issues coming up. We've got also on the 28th a free seedlings giveaway that has been orchestrated by our Kara Feeser, Chatham Township Environmental Commission member, and that will be at the Tanglewood drop-off, the Tanglewood compost area from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. You drop your stuff off at the shred event and head on out to Tanglewood Lane to pick up seedlings. They will be available on a first-come, first-served basis with instructions on how to store and care for and plant them. And also the Township Environmental Commission will be working on a cleanup of 7/10 of a mile of the Passaic River. Please see the website, see the Chatham Township website for details there. That will be coming up. There are a couple of obviously safety issues and so on. So please let's look into that, cleaning up the Passaic River. So many of us are involved. This is also, in addition to Volunteer Month, for which we are obviously so grateful, it is National Autism Awareness Month. And my colleague Mike Kelly and I had a great opportunity to visit the folks at ECLC today down in Chatham Borough. And they are a tremendous group raising kids, not raising kids, but educating kids with developmental disabilities from grammar school on through high school and beyond. And they do a tremendous job. They recently installed what they call a sensory room, and the sensory room is there to sort of talk some of the students in through difficult patches they may be facing during the course of the day, and it's incredible. There are many stimulating things and calming things and distracting things to sort of help the kids get through another school day when they run into rough patches. So ECLC is a great organization, and they are always looking for visitors, and they're looking to give tours out. If anybody has any questions about it, give them a call, because it's a fabulous organization. And I'm going to add along to Mayor Ritter's wonderful comments, and obviously all of us, how blessed we are as a great community to have so many of you folks volunteering your time and taking time away from your families, your dinner hour, Saturday mornings, and everything you do. When we talk about how we benefit in so many ways, and we do set a great example, you folks, for the kids when they know you're going off to coach a team or prepare a meal for the needy or work on something that's important to our community, to our laws and our things along those lines. It's great. And I know this is only the tip of the iceberg. We're going to look at this big picture and say that's a lot of people. That's just the tip of the iceberg, and we all know it, and we appreciate you with absolute gratitude. So thanks for everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Just a few items. As you heard, we had a couple of members from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention Community Out of the Darkness Walk. We're hosting our third annual walk this year. It's going to be at Cougar Field on Saturday, September 22nd at 5:30 in the evening, so mark your calendar now. In addition, last week or the week before, I can't remember, the days all moved together, we had a successful vaping public forum and workshop here in the township to help educate people on the dangers of vaping. That video is available online on the township website. It's also been posted to the Facebook page, so I'd encourage everyone in the community, parents particularly, who've got kids in grammar school and high school, if they want to learn more about it. It's a 40-minute video, some great insights and the rest. So take a look at that. Second thing I just want to talk about, I got a letter from Congressman Frelinghuysen. I'll just quickly read it. It reads, I am pleased to notify you of this year's Academy Night, scheduled for Monday, May 14th from 7 to 9 at Montville Township High School. Nominating young men and women for our service academies is one of the most important honors as a member of Congress. I strongly believe this event helps our young people as they begin to plan for possible military careers. He asked us that we share this invitation with the members of the community, where people who attend will have a hands-on opportunity to meet with representatives from all the 5 academies, which are West Point, Annapolis, Air Force, Coast Guard, and the Merchant Marine. So graduates and the graduates will be available on hand as well to speak with any students. So we'll post a flyer in the township here. We'll post it on our website as well as our social media pages. And we do have a colony ordinance fees coming up for this evening. So that begins the year of registration for the Colony Pool Club, one of the gems of our community. So just remind all residents, if you want to find a place to spend your summertime fun with family and friends, it's perhaps one of the best bargains you can get in any community recreational pool facility in Morris County. You can go online to the colonypoolclub.org to learn more. So that's it. John?
Nothing to report.
Nothing? Chief? All good? Tom?
Mayor, I'm going to defer until after the Planning Board and Zoning Board, but before the hearings of citizens.
Great. So before we jump into our annual reports from the Zoning Board and the Planning Board, we also want to welcome this evening Karen Freyer, who is the RPA Manager for PSE&G. You can tell us more. I don't know if you recently came on. We've been communicating in past several months and such. So I just want to say thank you for being here tonight and welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to serve Chatham Township, certainly as PSEG's Regional Public Affairs Manager. As you're aware, PSEG has proudly provided gas services here through the Summit Gas District. And in addition to that, I also wanted to share sincere gratitude for your patience as we've been implementing the gas main replacement program. And I'm happy to share that in spite of this horrific winter, that in June the repaving of the roads will be commencing, bearing any more blizzards. We certainly can't promise. I hope that spring is on the way. And the streets of Meadowbrook to Rose Terrace, Warwick Road through West Oak Hill Road will have the gas main replacement. Treadwell Avenue to Woodland Road. And if there are any issues or concerns, I'd like to share my cell number, please, which is...
Do you want to do that?
I sincerely do, absolutely. It is 973-289-1840. PSEG is thoroughly committed to communicating with you during this restoration process. This is a program that took many years to get approved for Chatham Township, as the BPU was quite conservative in allowing PSEG to come in and invest in the replacement of the gas mains. And we're happy that some of the aging infrastructure, which in some instances was upwards of 80 years old, could certainly be replaced for safety and, for generations to come. So I just wanted to stop by to say hello, let you know that I am accessible to yourselves, to your residents always, and let's hope that spring is on the way. Thank you.
Karen, I would like to thank you. A number of years ago, I was asked to serve as the liaison to the utilities that serve the residents of Chatham Township, and with all due respect to previous representatives from PSE&G, it's been hard to reach out and find a person. So it means a lot to us that you're here. It means a lot to our residents that their gas service is predictable, reliable, and won't disrupt the roadbed too much. So it's nice to know that we have a face with a name, and we're grateful that you're here. So thanks.
Pleasure to serve.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karen. We'll now move on to our annual reports. The first one is the Zoning Board of Adjustment. We have Chairman Tony Vivona.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Evening.
Committee members, I'm just going to read our report into the record. During the year 2017, the Board of Adjustment conducted 16 public meetings as well as site inspections on 11 Saturday mornings. Thanks to the Township Committee's appointment of its full authorized membership, 7 regular members and 2 alternate members, the Board has had a quorum for all meetings and applications. We approved variance applications for 12 residential properties, denied an appeal from a zoning officer decision, approved requests for extensions of approvals for 2 residential properties and a temporary cell tower, and approved site plans with associated variances for 3 properties. 2 of the site plans were for telecommunications facilities. Variances were granted in the following categories: use variance 1, expansion of a non-conforming use 1, D6 height variance 1, C height variance 2, front yard setback distance to structure 8, Principal structure 4, side yard setback distance to principal structure 6, rear yard setback to principal structure 8, maximum lot coverage of principal structures 1, impervious coverage 1, front yard setbacks to accessory structure 2, rear yard setback to accessory structure 4, side yard setback with a distance of swimming pool 2, setback from residential district 1, distance between buildings 1, fence height 1, steep slopes 15 to 20% 2, 20 to 25% 2, greater than 25% 3, grading 2, driveway slope and width 2, retaining wall setback 2, stormwater management, peak runoff rate reduction 1, and conditional use variances, spacing between telecommunications auxiliary structures 2, telecommunications antenna panel height 3, and telecommunications antenna panel width 3. The telecommunications approval for the Gloria Day site granted to T-Mobile and Verizon Wireless provides an alternative location for Verizon facilities proposed for the PSE&G tower off Pine Street, previously denied by the board. The approval was granted subject to any NJDEP requirements. NJDEP wetlands permit applications were submitted, and approval is anticipated shortly. The telecommunications approval granted T-Mobile for the JCP&L tower site on River Road, approved by the board for Verizon in 2007, was the first co-location application heard by the board pursuant to the FCC regulations interpreting what is a substantial change to an existing telecommunications tower under Section 6409A of the Federal Middle Class Tax Relief and Jobs Creation Act of 2012. The federal law requires local entities approve requests for co-location of new transmission facilities that do not substantially change the physical dimensions of an existing tower or base station. The FCC rule provides that an increase in the height of the existing antenna be by more than 10% or separation between the antenna arrays of more than 20 feet, whichever is greater, is a substantial change. The New Jersey co-location statute requires approval without the site plan review of co-location applications which do not increase antenna height by more than 10% unless a variance is involved. The board jurisdiction was based on variances from 3 conditional use standards. While the board cannot deny approvals, board review allows consideration of aesthetic issues associated with ground cabinets, fencing, and coax cable color. As raised in the board's resolution approving its annual report, the impact of redevelopment on existing neighborhoods continues to be a major concern. The board has recommended consideration for a residential floor area ratio ordinance. The new Providence floor area ratio ordinance reflects similar residential zone districts and could be a model for the township. An ordinance requiring the front of a house to be parallel to its street frontage would avoid incongruous redevelopment such as the house on Fairmont Avenue, which is constructed on an angle to the frontage. Respectfully submitted, Phil Vona, Chairman. Side notes, we were really concerned about that house on Fairmont. It changes the whole look of the street. I really hope we can come up with a ruling so this can't happen again. We feel that Chatham Township residents are becoming a cash cow for builders who are just trying to put the maximum amount of house on a space. And that particular one ruins the whole look of that street. The house is probably 30 degrees off center, off parallel. It doesn't fit. It ruined that section of the neighborhood, and we honestly feel that should be addressed. The floor area ratios we've brought up before. We really hope you guys can get it into your schedule. The houses in Chatham, although they're beautiful, are just they're massive, and it's eliminating first-time home buyers from living in Chatham because they can't afford it. They're getting $1 million for a knockdown now. The basic houses now are $2 to $3 to $5 million. The house across the street from the high school, which people call the bank, is absolutely massive. It doesn't fit the the neighborhood as far as its structure and its exterior, and it's for sale already. I don't think the guy ever lived in it. And houses like that are not going to sell, and they'll sit there vacant. So we just kind of need to get a handle on what's going on in Chatham to keep it a community that all income levels can afford to live in and enjoy the benefits of being a Chatham resident. We're doing our best with the cell towers. We cannot stop the cell towers from going up. We can find alternate spots like we did with Gloria Day, which satisfied a huge neighborhood, but unfortunately, two people who lived close to there didn't care for it, so it's still in the works. But if you drive down to any other towns and look at the cell tower structures, I think we've done a really good job of keeping the enclosures down below the towers tidy. Very little equipment is viewable above the fence line, and you can tell that we put a lot of thought and consideration into what it looks like for the surrounding homeowners. We're pretty proud of that. Then the telecommunications companies know when they come to us that they know that they can just put up whatever they want, but they also know that they have to get variances for where they're putting it, so that we have a chance to have our input into making it as aesthetically pleasing as it could possibly be. I think that's about it. I would like to thank the DPW crews for all they've done with all these massive storms and the cleanup. I know they've been out there 24 hours a day busting their chops, and it really means a lot to me and my family that we're able to get to and from places due to their hard work, and I thank them for that.
Thank you, Tony. Anyone have any questions for Tony?
I do. Tony, if you can appease me for a minute. The River Road cell tower. So you had mentioned that was the first addition put on that tower. And as far as I understand it, maybe you can educate all of us a little bit from that perspective. Oftentimes, you will see it on the water towers where you have a number of cell towers around outside the edges. My understanding that the way that tower was constructed and the way it was added onto it had to go up another 10 or 15 feet or so, and then the question becomes, if another addition gets on there, is that an incremental game we're playing, and is there some limit to the height of cell towers?
The height of the cell tower is limited by the physical strength of the tower. You could theoretically put 10 things on it, each one 10 feet above it, but the cell tower itself, the structure itself, cannot withstand that. So on the new monopoles, they're basically limited to 2, and that's only if one carrier has less coaxial cables going up, which means less antennas. Those towers were designed to handle 42 coaxial cables, and each telecommunication company have 24 cables. So there's 12 antennas, each one with 2 cables. The cables are almost 2 inches around, and the poles are only designed to handle 42, so it's very difficult to co-locate on any of the monopoles. The lattice-style towers, they're really not high enough to really do co-locating on. That's why the monopoles were so much better. The one on River Road, they put I think a 10-foot extension on that tower, and that's the maximum it can hold. The base of the tower has all of the mechanicals within the footprint of the tower, and with the second communication company, there is no more room within that tower. So they would have to build an alternative site, so that one will not go any higher.
Okay, that's what I was after as well. So thank you. The second question. Obviously, you just ran through a laundry list of variances that you approved, and some of them were probably minor, some of them were extensive. As a member of the zoning board, as the chair of the zoning board, do you feel like the zoning board feels some pressure in the sense that when you see these tear downs, rebuilds from scratch, and as you pointed out, the size of them, do you feel some pressure that you have to approve something relative because of what's going on around the town? Or does the board have a defined sense of you know, what is a common sense variance, so to speak, and you know, and obviously approves it on that basis? Or do you feel like a little bit of, you know, what we'd call bracket creep, like, well, we have to allow this variance because of what's going on across the street?
We hear that, we don't follow that. When a builder comes in, they're going to ask for the most and take what you give them. So they'll come in with over height, over width, over, you know, setback here. That they'll try whatever they can, and then knowing that some of the stuff will be denied, and they'll take what they'll get. But we've been pretty strict with the builders, and when they come in with a list of 5 variances, we'll convince them, or not convince, but argue with them that if they downsize this part of the house or that part of the house, or move it slightly, you'll get rid of some of the variances, especially steep slopes. There is a house on Susan Drive that's being constructed now that went through 5 or 6 revisions to make it not a horrible, gigantic 20-foot retaining wall in the back, because the house is on a cliff. We're working on a application on Sunset Drive where the builder came in and wanted to put a 6,500 square foot house in a neighborhood that the biggest house was under 5,000 square feet, and most of them were between 4,000 and 5,000. And the neighbors were highly upset, not that someone was going to build on a vacant lot, but they were just going to build a monstrosity that didn't fit the neighborhood. So we denied that application, and the builder has since come back with a house that is more in line with the neighborhood. And now the only concern with the neighbors is drainage and not the building. So we're pretty pleased that we've made progress with that.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony. And thanks for your service.
Thank you very much.
Just one question, Tony.
Yes.
In terms of the bank house by the high school,
Yes.
how did something like that happen? How do we prevent that from happening again? Is there anything you really can do when a builder comes in and just chooses a particular design, so to speak?
The house did not need variances. The only variance that house needed was they wanted to put a second temporary construction office trailer, and that's all it needed. It fits within the envelope. We can't give variances on people's taste.
Yeah.
It just, something like that, it would have to be, you know, come up with on public comment, but then that opens another Pandora's box that I don't like a blue house, I don't like a green house, so it is what it is. It's unfortunate that he built this monstrosity and it's for sale.
As I say, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, I suspect.
Exactly.
Very good. Well, Tony, thank you so much again for your report and your service to the community.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up for the planning board, we have Nicole Hagner, former mayor. Welcome and thank you. And we have other members of the planning board here tonight, so thank you for being in attendance.
Good evening, Mayor and committee members. Yes, we do have several members of the planning board here with me this evening, including the chair and 2 other members. So thank you for having us. I'm going to go through the report, but it's kind of put in the order in which it happened, but I think I'm going to kind of go through a highlight summary in a different order. Just if you're trying to follow along, I'll probably be jumping around. One thing is the board did have all regular and alternate members filled last year. However, we did just receive a resignation, so I think you guys were made aware of that. So we have now 1 vacancy for this year. So we're hopeful that you guys will find us a replacement soon. So that's just one administrative item. So the board had a couple applications. We did not have any subdivision applications last year, but we did have a couple applications. One was for Fairmont Country Club. They came before the board because they were doing a new construction of a pool building, the paddle court, so they were really expanding out. So they came for preliminary and final site plan approval, and the board did approve that application. So maybe people have seen some construction going on over there. They did approve it with conditional approval because they also had to get some state approval, so that was part of what the board did. Additionally, Oak Knoll School came in front of us. Oak Knoll owns one of the fields in town over towards Hickory Tree, and they came in for an application to replace one of they have 2 fields there, one of the fields to go from grass to turf. So that was also approved by the board. And they had 2 variances that were associated with that we wanted to put on the record as well, and that was for heighting of fence and netting. So we did allow that. Our current ordinance only allows for 6-foot fencing. It doesn't really go into detail around sports fencing and things like that, but from a safety perspective, the board did feel that was appropriate, so we approved those variances. We also had a courtesy review for a school board application. They were doing expansion. And again, that's a courtesy review from us. So we provide recommendations to the school board that gets sent down to the state on our review of their application. But it's not a formal application process like other applicants come through. So from an application perspective, that was pretty much what we did last year. Most of the other matters we did were more around planning board planning activities. One of which was doing a master plan reexamination. So we did that in the beginning of the year, and this is a requirement that's done every 10 years. You're supposed to review your master plan and do an examination and give recommendations on what you might want to amend or adopt or change within your master plan. So some of those things we've actually already done, one of which was looking at what we call the skate park area, which is along Southern Boulevard, and that was also something that came from the Township Committee for us to look at, to investigate if that should be considered an area in need of redevelopment. And the board did do that, and that was recommended, and that came back to you guys, so you're mostly aware of that one. Let's see, what other things? We had a couple rezoning, again, around Oak Knoll. When they did come forth for their application to do the turf project, we realized that they have quite a bit of property, and there was a whole bunch of different lots and blocks, but they were all designated in different zones. So we thought it would make more sense to just, and I think they came to you guys first, I think is how the process worked. So we did do a rezoning ordinance that we looked at from you guys for master plan consistency, and did deem that consistent with the, not inconsistent with the master plan. So that was rezoned. Let's see, we had several topics around the Dixie-Dale property. So obviously, there was a lot of discussion around that, a lot of public hearing, looking at that property, doing a rezoning in that area. Again, a lot of the things from what you guys had asked us to do at the planning board. So we looked at that, we proposed an ordinance, which you guys later adopted last year. And really, that was the majority of the activity. One thing is, although we haven't been having a lot of applications, the board did discuss at one point going to monthly meetings instead of meetings twice a month. But we did feel that it gives us the flexibility, because you're never really sure what's going to happen, to still keep the meetings twice a month. And then we do cancel quite a few meetings, so we probably have about a meeting a month. But just for general understanding, we have decided to keep that structure. But maybe at some point it would make sense to just move it to once a month, just for general people coming in or knowing, and also for volunteers. If perhaps, although we haven't had an issue with getting volunteers, but maybe more people would be apt to volunteer knowing that it's only a commitment once a month as well. And that, there are some interesting things I heard Tony talk about as part of our reexamination. Certainly one of the areas was around, sort of development and overbuilding in town. So it is something the planning board wants to look at this year. Maybe perhaps some, looking at the land use and some of our ordinances can we modify them to make sure we're doing good planning? I think, Kevin, to your point, I think the philosophy on the planning board is we want good development to happen. So in some cases, we will look at increasing a variance for a better overall project. So the applicants will come in and try to, get everything minimized, but sometimes it doesn't really make sense when you're looking at it. So I think the board, at least from the planning board's perspective, we're very much conscious of that, and in some cases have granted a bigger variance in one area just to make the overall development better. And I think that the board, I think that's what we want in the town. If we're all going to have a development, it's going to happen anyway. So we might as well try to make it the best development possible. So we can look at some things. I know previously the planning board did look at some different ways of design standards and things, but it does get very difficult because how much do you want to regulate? You don't want to regulate the people, the color of people's houses, exactly how they look. But certainly it's something the board can take up to see if there are some opportunities to make some modifications that would make sense.
Great. Anybody have any questions, or Nicole?
Sure. If I could. Nicole, thank you very much. I think that I hope the public appreciates what the planning board does. I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. In my mind, that in addition to dealing with the applications, the individual applications, you really are the planners for the township, that certainly is a big asset, and we look to the planning board for a lot of guidance here in the township committee. Recently, a number of people have come to the township committee concerned about what I think has been one of the major topics here tonight, about the density and the size of some development, and hearing the zoning board's perspective on the problems as they have to deal with it from their end, and hearing how it's already on your kind of horizon is very reassuring too. I think if you haven't received it already, I know the township committee has talked about sending that to the planning board as a question to look at, and to see how we can best address that to continue to encourage good, healthy development, which any town needs, but also to try to be responsive to what we're hearing from the public, that people are concerned about some of their neighborhoods and what overdevelopment can do to a neighborhood.
Yeah, no, I think it's something we can certainly look at and, maybe make some very, good practical modifications to the current ordinances that we have. So we'll do our best shot, and then it'll come back to you guys. So we don't do anything without you guys looking at what we're doing, so.
And on the agenda tonight is a tree ordinance, an updated tree ordinance. That's also something that you and your board had a lot of good input into, so thank you for that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, this year, we have also started doing some things this year. We also looked at, I know that Morris County was looking at some things in Hickory Tree and the Hickory Tree corridor, so we offered up some recommendations. So we certainly appreciate you guys being, letting us also participate, because I know the people on the board are very much interested in helping in any way they can, so thank you for that.
Great. Well, thank you again, Nicole, for your service, and thank you for all your other committee members that are here tonight. Okay. We'll now move on to a hearing of citizens. Sure, yes?
May I go first?
Sure.
You'll recall, we have on the agenda as one of the first items of business the public hearing on the amended budget, and then hopefully final adoption. But before we get to that, I wanted to just follow up on some discussion that we had at the last meeting about the capital portion of the budget. There were some questions asked by a member of the public, and I thought that I had answered pretty clearly the questions that were posed, but apparently I didn't, because on local social media there were some things posted that took a slide from the PowerPoint presentation and showed it as the capital budget. Well, that is how it's labeled in the PowerPoint presentation, but it of course is not the actual capital budget. In fact, the whole PowerPoint presentation is not the budget. That's not what you guys vote on. This is the budget. This is the official state document budget that is posted on our website for anybody who wants to see it, along with the PowerPoint presentation, which is a summary and an overview of this document. But this is the document you vote on. This is the document that gets approved or denied.
So the PowerPoint is just a high-level overview of the budget itself.
That's correct. It's just intended to provide not only a summary just of the budget, but it also has highlights and a summary of the annual debt statement and the annual financial statement. You'll recall me going through the results of operations that shows how surplus is regenerated to be used in the budget. So it's more of an overview of the financial documents, of which the budget is one. But as you know, and as I want to stress for those who don't follow the process all that closely. One of the things that's vitally important for everybody to understand about municipal finance is that we are not authorized to spend any money unless it's appropriated by the governing body. And that's true for no matter what form of government in the state of New Jersey, whether it's a township committee, a mayor council, borough commission. Until you appropriate the money through a formal action by the governing body, you're not authorized to spend it. So, for example, when we get a grant, we can't just take the grant and award contracts and spend it. You have to do a resolution. Typically, if it comes after the adoption of the budget, we do what's called a Chapter 159 amendment to the budget, and that grant is then added as an anticipated revenue with an offsetting appropriation. Doesn't affect taxes, but even though it doesn't affect taxes, we can't spend it until you take that action. You'll recall at the last meeting, we did one of those. We actually, part of this amendment tonight was to add money for storm debris removal, but it was also to appropriate the grant that we got for the Shunpike Road sidewalk, because we hadn't done that yet. So that became part of the amendment. But anybody who wishes to go to our website or come to the clerk's office and get a copy of the actual budget document, if you go to sheet 40, this is the beginning of the capital budget. And I'd like to read to you what it says. This section is included with the annual budget pursuant to NJAC 5:30-4. It does not in itself confer any authorization to raise or expend funds. Rather, it is a document used as part of the local unit's planning and management program. Specific authorization to expend funds for purposes described in this section must be granted elsewhere by a separate bond ordinance, by inclusion of a line item in the capital improvement section of this budget, by an ordinance taking the money from the capital improvement fund, or other lawful means. And I'm pretty sure that at the last meeting, I pointed that out, that the capital budget doesn't appropriate the funds. That will come later in a bond ordinance. And that bond ordinance is on your agenda for this evening. The next page, which is sheet 40A, again, the following pages reflect the estimated needs for the Township of Chatham for the years 2018 through 2023, as required by New Jersey state statute. Because we're a town with a population over 10,000, we have to do a 6-year capital plan. Smaller towns only do a 3-year. Sheet 40B is the capital budget for the current year. And this lays out the list of projects. These were the projects that were listed on the PowerPoint slide as the capital budget. And there are 5 categories this year. And again, you'll find these described in the bond ordinance that you're going to introduce a little bit later. And what this sheet shows is the description of the project. Number 1, purchase of DPW equipment, estimated total cost $100,000. And the funding for that is $5,000 from the Capital Improvement Fund, because we're obligated to provide a 5% down payment on bond ordinances, and then $95,000 in debt that's authorized. When you total up all of the projects, the estimated total cost of all of them is $835,000. 5% of that is $41,750 as the down payment, and debt being authorized of $793,250. That is what you will see, or you do see, in the bond ordinance that's on for introduction this evening, along with then a detailed description of the 5 that are listed here without detail, other than the caption of what they are. The next sheet, 40C, lays out the 6-year plan showing, again, 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23, with the total amounts estimated at this point in time. And then the last page, 40D, shows those summarized with, again, the funding mechanisms, with 5% anticipated to come from the Capital Improvement Fund, and then the rest through general obligation bonds. So that's the actual capital budget, and it is part of what you will hopefully approve tonight before you then introduce the bond ordinance that will authorize us to then go ahead and actually do these projects. Okay, so I hope that clears the air for everybody and helps to understand.
Clarification.
But again, if anybody has any questions about the budget at any time, I don't care if it's you know, this time of year, or if it's in the middle of the summer, or if it's in the fall. If you think of something, I'm available. I love talking about this stuff. Anybody wants to call me, has questions, suggestions, have at it, please.
And this is the third meeting we've actually been discussing the budget, right?
At least.
At least the third.
Third here, and then the Finance Committee also met and reviewed the.
And these materials have been on our website for a couple of months now, I guess?
From, certainly, the budget document and the PowerPoint presentation were posted the day after they were presented here. So whatever that first day was back in, I think, February 22nd.
Okay.
So February 23rd, they were all on the website.
It's almost 2 months ago.
Right, and then
Tom Salvis is also like, he's edited the Township Committee
he
meetings
has.
as well, right? So you
I've
could
asked
easily
him to
watch.
get my good side, but he doesn't always do that.
He does his best. You've always got, both sides are good. Okay, I just want to make sure, because, you know, there's some confusion, I guess, that, you know, we've been
There
pretty
is, yeah.
transparent about the budget process, making sure residents are aware of, you know, it's been available on the website for months now. It's been a tradition of ours, as it were, for several years to include the budget, the videos, PowerPoints, and everything else. So I'm glad to see that we've
And
continued
last
that.
point on that, as far as this, you know, transparency issue. One of the best practices that the state requires is for municipalities to, if they don't have if they have a website, to post, I think, at least 3 years of your financials. If you don't have a website, I think the state has a place for them to be posted. So everybody's required to put the stuff up. We've been ahead of the curve, and I think if you go to our website and you look at the financial department, you'll see, I think we've got 10 years worth of budgets and financial statements and audits, and it's all there. So it's easy. Anybody that has access to the internet, all that documentation is there. And again, if you want hard copy, come on in. Greg will make it available to you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tom. Any questions for Tom?
I just think to imply otherwise is reckless, and I think that it smacks of an accusation of obfuscation, as I've said before. It creates turmoil where turmoil doesn't exist, and it's a shame that all of this has to be said, but it's all here in black and white. It's all here in public documents, and it's unfortunate that you have to come out and say it, but it's true, and to imply otherwise is reckless and disingenuous, I think. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. Any other questions of Tom? No. Open up for hearing? Public hearing, is that how it works?
You're going to have the general hearing of citizens first.
Okay, we'll have a public hearing right now, hearing of citizens. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to be heard about issues which are not topics scheduled for public hearing tonight. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers are asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes. If you come forward, just say your name and address. All right, seeing no one come forward, we'll close the public hearing. Joe? That's one of.
For topics.
Yeah, topics not being discussed tonight. Okay, we'll close it out again. We'll now have Resolution 2018-77, adopting the amended 2018 municipal budget. Is there a motion to approve? All right, we'll have a public hearing on the budget.
Technically, the public hearing is on the amendment. The public hearing on the budget is finished.
Okay.
So if anybody has any questions about the amendment or comments about the amendment, that's what you're doing.
I will open up for comment on the amendment. Seeing no one come forward, we'll close it. I'll now ask for a motion to approve the amended 2018 municipal budget.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Mr. Selin?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Schwartz?
Yes.
Mayor Ritter?
Yes. Thank you very much. Now we've got a couple of 3 ordinances coming forward here for final adoption. First one is Ordinance 2018-05, repealing subsection 30-96.9B regarding unregulated pipelines. Howard, you want to just give a brief recap?
You'll recall that at the end of last year, you adopted a pipeline ordinance which made pipelines conditional uses within the township, subject to a whole series of conditions on the basis of the recommendation of the township engineer. Earlier, 2 years earlier, you had adopted a much broader ordinance prohibiting pipelines within the municipality. This is a technical requirement because the new ordinance supersedes the prior ordinance, and it's just simply intended to remove that prior ordinance from the code book, so only one ordinance remains in effect, the most current ordinance which you adopted at the end of last year.
Great, thank you. Anyone have any questions of Albert? We'll now open up for hearing of citizens. If anyone wants to come forward. Close out the hearing of citizens. Do I have a motion to approve ordinance 2018-05?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second. Go ahead.
Mr. Salin?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Schwartz?
Yes.
Mayor Ritter?
Yes. Next ordinance up for final adoption is ordinance 2018-07, prohibiting marijuana cultivation, production, testing, manufacturing facilities in retail stores in all zones, in all zone districts. Albert, you want to give a brief recap on that one as well, please?
This ordinance is consistent with current law, which prohibits all of these activities as a matter of criminal law and is consistent with federal law. In addition to that, it anticipates the pending legislation regarding the use of recreation marijuana. The bill, as it currently stands, carves out and allows municipalities under their police power and municipal land use authority to prohibit these uses within the municipality. So this is consistent with current law and consistent with the proposed legislation.
Thank you, Albert. And I'll just address real quickly. Obviously, we've been talking about this for a little bit now. At my State of the Township address, so to speak, at the beginning of the year, I had made a comment that we were going to introduce this ordinance to basically counter what I perceive to be the governor's ill-conceived idea that legalizing marijuana is going to be solving all of our problems in Trenton. I think that's far from the truth. I think it's going to cause more trouble than anything it's going to cure. That is why we've introduced this ordinance. The planning board reviewed it. It came back to us for tonight. Marijuana, as we know, is I believe, a gateway drug to other drugs. Drugs are a problem in our society. Our first and foremost responsibility in this committee, I believe, is public safety. And if this is an opportunity for us to step forward and take the lead and tell Trenton and others that we don't want marijuana being sold and manufactured in our town, then I'm glad that we're taking the lead on this. Anybody else have any other comments?
Just to follow up on a comment you made, Mayor.
Sure.
You are correct. The planning board did review this ordinance and made a determination that it is not inconsistent with the master plan. The planning board adopted resolution 2018-008 at the end of March, and it concludes in paragraph 2 that based upon the testimony of the board planner, the planning board hereby finds that ordinance 2018-07 is not inconsistent with the Chatham Township Land Use Plan element and master plan, and hereby recommends that the Township Committee adopt the proposed amendment to the land development ordinance. So the planning board has taken the necessary action to allow you to proceed on the public hearing tonight, and if you so choose, adopt the ordinance.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor,
yes.
if I could just ask Albert also, could you just define or go into just one more step of the explanation between the current existing state federal laws and the medicinal marijuana laws presently in New Jersey?
Well, in New Jersey, medicinal marijuana is permitted. There are 3 sections of the state. 2 dispensaries are allowed in each section of the state. This ordinance has no impact on that. If someone needs to use medicinal marijuana, this ordinance doesn't change their ability to do so. Medicinal marijuana may be smoked, obviously, in a private home. There are restrictions similar to smoking a cigarette that apply to medicinal marijuana. So this ordinance is not intended to have an impact on the use of medicinal marijuana.
Thank
Thank you, Albert. We'll now open up for a hearing of citizens or a public hearing on this topic. If you want to, please want to come forward and state your name and address.
My name's Lefty Grimes. I'm from East Hanover.
Is that Y or I?
Grimes?
Lefty.
Lefty with a Y. Your ban does affect medical cannabis patients. Your ban is it's already banned. Cannabis is already banned recreationally, adult use. We're not going to see adult use cannabis. What you're doing is hurting patients. You're hurting medical cannabis patients. You're hurting children with autism. You don't see the children that use cannabis oil. I'm sure there's a stigma that they don't want to tell you, but there are children in this town that use cannabis. There are disabled war vets that use cannabis. Cannabis is being sold in your town right now. It's being sold all over New Jersey on a black market. What you're doing is hurting patients. Maybe you don't realize you're hurting patients, but you are. You're hurting patients with cancer. You have people with cancer that can't be here tonight. I represent people that are suffering and dying. They can't be here tonight. We go all over the state and fight councils that are doing this. We try to turn them and try to make them realize what they're doing, that they're hurting patients. And we've been successful in a lot of towns because towns don't realize that they're hurting patients. You don't realize you're hurting disabled war vets. Whoever doesn't support disabled war vets, are you kidding me? These people have fought for their lives and given their lives for you, given their legs, and you're not going to give them their cannabis in this town? Sure, they can smoke cannabis. I can smoke cannabis right now. I got my vaporizer right here. I got my jar right here. It's not going to affect me, but I can't buy it here. I live in East Hanover. I have to drive an hour to get my cannabis. I have stenosis. I have an artificial disc. I have a fusion. There are people here in worse shape than me that can't be here. We've had people come out to our meetings that have chemo bags, that have colostomy bags, that are suffering, that have helmets on, with children with helmets on. And you're going to tell me you're not going to give a child anything they need, that needs their medicine? How can you make somebody suffer like that? How do you, as God-fearing people, not help people that are suffering? Really? Are you Christian? I've been Catholic school my whole life. I will call out any fake Christian that makes people suffer. How dare you make people suffer in your town? Disabled war vets, really? They've given everything for you. Children with epilepsy, children with autism. Yeah, I'm triggered because I see these people suffering every day. And maybe you don't see it. Maybe you've never seen somebody with cancer. But let me tell you something. When you see someone with cancer, you're going to want to do everything you can for them. Everything. And that's not banning their medicine. Let's not take their medicine away from them. You have fentanyl sold around here. You have OxyContin sold around here. There's no zone for that. You sell it everywhere, and it's killing people. My friend Armando died last year. My friend Jay died like 2 years ago. He called me 2 weeks before he died. He said, Lefty, I can't get cannabis. I want to get on the program. Because I was on OxyContin for 10 years. He knows my story. I was on, it was an exit drug for me. Gateway drug, psh, get the heck out of here. Gateway drug, are you kidding me? It was an exit drug for me. I was a zombie for 10 years on OxyContin, Roxicodone, Valium, Neurontin. I got off all those drugs using cannabis. It was an exit drug for me. I help other people get off these horrible drugs. My friend Don came out the other day in Parsippany. We got Parsippany to legalize a medical dispensary. They banned recreational. Fine. I don't care about that. Recreational is actually hurting patients right now. All this talk about recreational is hurting patients because it's stressing them out. Cancer does not go well with stress. Stress is not good for cancer patients. And these meetings are stressful. My friend Jeff couldn't be here tonight. My other friends couldn't be here tonight because they're suffering. They've had enough. They're fighting. They can't fight forever. These people are dying. I'm one of the healthiest ones out of the group, and I'm suffering. I'm in pain right now.
Thank you, Lefty.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to come forward?
Hi, I'm Rose McGill from Lawrenceville, New Jersey. I'm here to speak in defense of cannabis and provide some history and health topics in an effort to relieve fear the public may have about its legalization. When you try to ban, outlaw, or restrict the use of cannabis as a medicine, you are perpetuating an 81-year campaign that has been run under false pretense. The United States government ran a coordinated campaign with the big money, high pollution industries of the day to remove cannabis and hemp from the farming industry because it stood in the way of their profits. They used Mexicans and other minorities as their tool to scare and brainwash the people. Look how long they have been able to hide its medicinal value. And there are still people who are trying to hide despite the proven science. Up until aspirin, cannabis oil was the foundation of all medicine. This plant is an environmentally safe alternative that can be used most importantly as a safe medicine, but also a healthy food. It can be used to replace fossil fuels, textiles, steel, building materials, paper, plastic, body care products, and nutritional supplements. And it cleans the soil as it grows. Instead, by banning it, we are stuck with the toxic pollution and the deadly pharmaceutical nightmare that we live in today. The cheap, high-pollution industries have poisoned our air, land, drinking water, rivers, oceans, our seafood, and our entire food chain, which are all vulnerable to toxins. We have birth control and every other synthetic drug flowing into our sewers and through the water supply. At this rate, we're going to pollute the human race out of existence, and soon enough. Cannabis is one of the most complex and versatile plants on the planet and has been used by humans as long as Earth itself, and people are not going to stop using it now because a few towns in New Jersey want to ban it. Banning it has a proven statistical record of complete failure. So I would urge that instead of banning it and trying to hide it from people, that you face it head on, learn about its uses, learn why people want it, teach your citizens the truth about it, and learn how to use and prescribe it properly. By banning it, you are subjecting patients to more stigma and discrimination. Stop using people's lives to run up your arrest numbers, your economic numbers, and your incarceration rates. Stop force-feeding people toxic combinations of synthetic drugs. Stop polluting my food and water. As with every living thing on this planet, cannabis was put on this earth for a reason. It is part of our ecosystem for a reason. When you remove it from the chain, you disrupt life itself. As a medicine, it restores the body to equilibrium and homeostasis. Your body was designed to receive THC and CBD. That is why it stays in your system for 30 days, because it is good for your health. It relieves stress, which allows the body to heal. When people cannot relieve intense stress, they are in a constant state of suffering. Please study the endocannabinoid system. I have a chart here you may share with your residents that shows all the benefits. When cannabis was banned, we lost 80 years worth of research and are now still virtually ignorant of its full powers. Please do not go down as a contributor to this false history. If you want to contribute to the health of your community, you may want to welcome a dispensary and a learning center to go along with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Would anyone else like to come forward?
Hello, how are you doing? My name is Wayne Barini, 11 Kelly Road. I am a New Jersey medical marijuana patient. A couple of your facts are wrong. Wherever we could smoke a cigarette, we're allowed to legally medicate. So we're not told to do it in our homes. Wherever you could legally smoke a cigarette, you could legally smoke your medical marijuana. I'm one of 18,000 people that's in the program. Currently, there's 6 dispensaries up and running. There's no more backups. Now we have a new governor. Chris Christie's gone. We have Phil Murphy. I know you sound like Harry Anslinger because you want to equate this to recreational marijuana. Please don't. Please separate the two. I beg you, sir. Because there's 18,000 of us. New Jersey has roughly over 9 million people in it. The same size as Michigan, and they also have a medical marijuana program. They have 230,000 patients in their program. I'll repeat that again. Michigan has 230,000 patients. We in New Jersey, only have 18,000. Governor Murphy just expanded the program 2 weeks ago. He made 5 more qualifying conditions. One of those conditions, migraines. Another one of those conditions, anxiety. Another one is chronic pain. My whole point, in order to be in this program, well, 9 of the 15 qualifying conditions before the 5 that were added are life sentencing. You gotta have AIDS. You gotta have not just cancer, you have to have cancer where you only get 6 months to live. The program was very, very strict. We have a governor now who's gonna open the doors. Pretty soon you're gonna see this 18,000 rapidly rise. I guarantee you by the end of the year, it's at least 10 times the size. Now with anxiety. Anyone who has anxiety, we can get in. They can get in. The point is, now Governor Murphy is trying to allow it where the current way the dispensaries are they must dispense and grow the weed, the cannabis, the medicine. Well, now Governor Murphy is trying to get it where you don't have to grow and dispense. Governor Murphy is going to make it where you could have it where you can grow and or you can dispense and or you could have these satellite systems, pretty much where you can transport. I would hate to see Chatham Township deny medical marijuana patients of a place where we can come and purchase medicine. Geez, how many CVS's are there? How many Walmarts? I tried getting I don't want to give you my story about the opioids and all, but cannabis is my medicine of choice. Currently, right now, I'm allowed 2 ounces. It's cost me $500 an ounce, plus state sales tax. All I ask is you guys at least think about a medical marijuana dispensary. Please don't equate medical with recreational. That's all I beg you, please don't. This stuff's saving my life. It's saving 18,000 of us. And at least, here's the sad part, 500 of us die a year. In the program, 500 of us die a year. Please, I'm begging you. Please, guys.
Thank you, Wayne.
Let's think about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to come forward? Sure.
My name is Lori Reed. I live on Williams Road. I wasn't really prepared to speak tonight. However, I've lived in Chatham for over 20 years. Both my husband and I grew up here also. I spent 1 year in Denver, and living in Denver, this was before the marijuana. 2 kids of mine, 20-somethings, used to live in Denver. They had to move because the situation there was so out of control due to the marijuana. And I visited Denver several times while they were there. The retail stores I got to see. It's a nightmare. You have kids lined up for hours before those stores open. There are no bathroom facilities out there either. It's really a big mess. I suggest anybody go out to Denver and see what it's like. They've really ruined the downtown, in my opinion. And I'm not here to speak about the medical marijuana. I have no clue about that. But another thing to think about also with the apartment buildings especially, you're going to have people smoking the marijuana in the apartment buildings. The smoke wafts through these walls, through the ventilation systems. I know because one son that lived there, he had to move because when it was a no smoking building, and he went to the manager and said, you know, I'm getting headaches from the marijuana smoke here. What am I going to do? And they said, well, we can't, the manager said we can't do anything because we do not want to go knock on the guy's door while he's super high. They won't do it. So that's another consideration, and I wish the people that have voted in this Phil Murphy guy had thought about that before they voted him in. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to come forward?
Robert Nevin, 15 Seminole Way, Chatham Township. Mayor Ritter, committee members, I would be remiss if I didn't just quickly thank you for recognizing the volunteers of Chatham Township. We got a chance earlier this evening to see the best of what Chatham Township has to offer. And then we got a chance to see Lefty. Thank you for this ordinance. Enjoy your evening.
Would anyone else like to come forward? We'll close out the hearing of citizens. Do I have a motion to approve this ordinance?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Mr. Salin?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Schwartz?
Yes.
Mayor Ritter?
Yes. Moving on, we have ordinance 2018-09, colony pool fees. As we discussed earlier, it's 'tis the season for the Colony Pool Club. DPW has been out and about in between their winter cleanup, doing work on Colony and other areas of the town. This is a great club, and we're pleased to introduce this ordinance. Does anyone on the committee have any questions about it? It is, yeah. Public hearing?
Yeah.
I asked if anyone had any questions, comments. We'll open up for public hearing. All right, seeing no one have a public comments on this, we will now close it, and I'll ask for an introduction or a motion to approve.
So moved.
Seconded.
Mr. Salin?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Schwartz?
Yes.
Mayor Ritter?
Yes. Moving on now, we have three ordinances for introduction. The first is ordinance 2018-10, multi-purpose bond ordinance. Tom, you want to give us a little, you discussed it earlier, but.
Yes, Mayor, this, are we on? Yeah. This is the multi-purpose bond ordinance that would appropriate the funds for the projects that were described in the capital section of the budget. And I'll very quickly run through those. The first section is acquisition of new or replacement equipment and machinery for the Department of Public Works. And the first item is a new fuel management system to replace the antiquated one that is on its last legs. And then in addition to that, the purchase of new pickup trucks with plows. The next category is undertaking improvements of the roads. The road program, as you'll recall, we adopted, or you adopted, a comprehensive plan that John Rushke was the main author of, but we all worked on together. We still have funds remaining from 2017 that were approved last year, and hopefully we're going to see some spring paving this year as opposed to prior years when we've had to wait for the summer. But because we had funds remaining from last year, weather permitting, we're going to go ahead with some important sections and get those knocked out. The new authorization then would be for other streets that are also contained in a program that John put together and would be on file in the clerk's office. The next category is broadly described as improvements to the various buildings, but that includes replacement of one of the garage doors at DPW Building Number 1, and then the rest is improvements to this building, particularly the outside. There's a lot of the concrete work that needs to be upgraded. What do we call this? The north side of the building, the gym side of the building needs some improvement. And then there's also improvements planned for the senior center. They came up with a plan for some things that needed to be done there. We did not have sufficient funds last year, so a part of these funds would be for that as well. And then last two items, I think every bond ordinance that we've done for the last several years has included $50,000 to be split between the two fire departments to replace minor capital equipment, things like turnout gear and Scott packs and that sort of stuff. Not a big chunk of money. It's $25,000 each per year, and we don't necessarily always spend it every year. It accumulates for a couple of years until there's really a need, but it's a way of creating a fund for those things as they arise. And then the last is some improvements to Colony Pool, which include installation of a new chlorine pump, installation of a safety railing. If you know the dock area, referred to as the teen dock, our insurance carrier requested that we put up a railing on one side of it that kind of falls to the shallow portion of the pool. The other side are the swim lanes, but that back side, the concern was if somebody were to fall off, they're falling into shallow water. So we're going to install a safety railing there. So those are the projects that you would be authorizing us to go forward with. And again, the total is $835,000, and the authorization of debt is $793,250.
So Tom, this is a pretty detailed ordinance, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
About 4 pages worth of details on how money is being spent in the town. Thank you. Well done.
That's correct. And then there's backup material as well. As I said, the road improvement program. We don't list all of the roads that are planned for paving, but I have it in front of me. I can tell you we're looking to do Bridge Avenue, Central Avenue, Hickory Place, Memorial Way, which is the little roadway next to the Green Village Fire Department. We're also looking to do the Green Village Fire Department parking lot. That's in a state of disrepair. Those are all ready to go forward through the county co-op. John's working to get those scheduled, hopefully before Memorial Day, frankly. And then the others that we're looking at as new authorization are Gibbons Place, Henry Drive, Mountain Avenue, Lenape Trail, Yarmouth, Plymouth, Falmouth, Treadwell, Long Hill Lane, Woodlawn, Evergreen, Cypress, and I think Hickory Place as well. So those are the new authorizations. The others are already ready to move forward.
Great. And this ordinance already appears on the website, as it were, right?
I believe that, yes, I think that it gets posted when the agenda gets posted.
Yeah, part of the agenda packet. That's
Yeah, even though I've urged you in the past not to post draft ordinances in case, people print them out and they don't happen, you have somebody show up 2 years later and say, hey, I have this ordinance, but nevertheless, it was your desire to post things even before.
To get information out to the public
Get it
sooner
out to
than
the
later.
public because you're so committed to transparency.
Thank you, sir.
When-
I'm glad you
Well,
recognize
there
that.
is the list of streets that you just read off. Is that somewhere? I didn't see the.
It's right here. Yeah, we'll get you a copy tomorrow.
Great.
It needs, John and I have been working on trying to finalize it. He's got estimated numbers, and he tends to estimate on the high side to make sure that we have sufficient funds. And we're just refining it a little bit, but we'll try to put a copy in your box by tomorrow.
That's great. I mean, I think about people that we hear from around town a lot talking about the way the roads are crowned and sometimes deteriorating, and they're old roads. And so I know that a lot of times we hear that they need a little extra attention. So it's nice to know, nice to hear some of those on that list.
Yeah, well, usually the people that are on township committee get their neighborhoods done last.
That's what I would expect. But, then they email me in the middle of the night. That's
Very
why
good.
I signed up for it.
Thank you, Tom.
That's actually true. I'm not trying to be smart, but that's true. Typically, your things wind up being deferred. As my neighborhood, we don't like to be accused of playing favorites.
Do you have a motion to introduce?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Slynn?
My street was on that list. I don't know if I get in trouble. I didn't say anything to anyone. Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Schwartz?
Yes.
Mayor Ritter?
Yes.
Public hearing will be on April 26th.
Next ordinance for introduction is ordinance 2018-11, that's tree management ordinance. Do you want to say anything about this?
Sure. We discussed this at length in discussion periods at the planning board. Obviously, it came back, it came to the committee, and we, because there was a misunderstanding about the master plan and what the role is with the planning board, we sent it back with some suggestions and ideas back to the planning board to get a last look, as we told the planning board we would. We refined it and worked on additional comments that we had received over that period. I'll just go over some of the highlights. I think what this tree ordinance does, it gets rid of that idea that we had all the density in the trees, which was a concern of residents, where someone would come in and take down some trees, then they would take down the house, and it looks like they clear-cutted the lot. But in actuality, there were 4 or 6 trees in the back right-hand corner, and they met our tree density ordinance. So this provides some balance into the tree density part of that. We've also taken a look at those streets that have what we would call shade tree or tree streetscapes. A classic example of that would be a Linden Lane or Robert Drive, where this actually, one of the houses that John reviewed for us, we take a look at that. So now we've got more of a balance from a density perspective. One of the major points of this ordinance is also the fact that now we have a conceptual lot plan pre-application before someone comes in to do any work. If they're going to do major demolition work, they are going to have to submit a pre-application plan and show us exactly what they're going to do with the entire lot from a perspective of trees. So we've balanced it out. We also have an appeals process. There's a permit process, and if a permit is denied, there's an appeals process where it includes the head of the chair of the planning board, the chair of the zoning board. Obviously, these are people who have spent lots of time with our land use laws and have lots of experience with that. And it also provides for a member of the public to sit on the appeals committee as well. So we get just an outsider's perspective and a purer view, I suppose, or another objective view of the permit process. So I think we have addressed a lot of the concerns and issues that we had and that were a concern to many people. I think will address some of that clear cutting, or what appears to be clear cutting, and it puts somewhat of the builders just giving us a pre-application type of process, and so we get a fuller picture. John, did I miss anything of the highlights you want to discuss?
You absolutely hit all the highlights. I certainly just want to emphasize the one provision that we have added regarding prior to issuing a demolition permit, the process will be is that a tree management plan or conceptual plan needs to be submitted before that demolition permit is issued. So you're not seeing the demo or accidental trees coming down. We actually, review the trees coming down, and the intent of that is there has been many occasions where we look to save a tree. However, there's been so much money invested in the architectural and the engineering, and it comes to us at the very end when they're looking for an approval, and then all of a sudden we're looking at, well, can you change this, can you change that, and it's a very significant impact. And so what the provision is we're trying to plan from the very beginning. We get a concept plan. We can then, any trees that are specimen trees that fall under the provisions that we want to see saved, we can emphasize that from the very beginning so that they can take that in consideration with their engineering up front, with their architectural, and they can adjust that. So we're hoping that that's more of a stronger initiative in trying to work with developers, work with homeowners too, because certainly homeowners, I've had cases where I point out a very specimen tree that really should have been more effort to protect, However, they already went through the whole process with their architect for a new pool and all the engineering, and it's just a lot of expense to go back down to the drawing board to start over. So I think that provision is really going to be helpful in reviewing it. And we certainly did add more stronger provisions from the last ordinance, certainly focusing more on the front yard where we have the streetscape, where we want to preserve certain trees. Other provisions, we're trying to save trees along the outer perimeter of the property, where typically the outer perimeter trees are not being impacted by the redevelopment, and so it's just trees to focus on more of those areas. Certainly the density, we're looking at the density in a different perspective, where before it was just, you look at the total number of trees, the size of the lot, and then as Kevin mentioned, a lot of cases where you get this perception of clear cutting because all the preserved safe trees are in the rear. Now the requirement is with the density, you only get credit for 4 trees in the rear, 4 trees on the sides, and 4 trees in the front, so it's a more distribution to try to preserve trees throughout the property. One other item that, so we would certainly, there's more of a focus on preserving trees where we can. Another provision that was added was registration of contractors. We're basically contractors that are doing the trees. It's a very easy process to go through, but the intention of having the contractors registered, the contractors knows up front that what is the permitting process and what are the rules, and so that if a homeowner says, well, can you take this one tree while you're here, well, he'll know that if he takes down that one tree and it has not been permitted, he's subject to fines also. So it's just a matter of making sure that not only the homeowner or developer knows the rules, but also the contractors that are doing the work, they're familiar with the rules.
And I would just add, John, we spent a great deal of time discussing the homeowner who needs to do something on their property and the builder, and trying to find some common ground to not be too onerous to the individual homeowner, but yet at the same time protect the neighborhood and the street from a builder coming in and doing something that kind of takes the character away from that street. So there was a lot of discussion revolved around that. I think we've come to a good medium on that, where we address all the issues on that front as well.
I think one of the big things that our residents have been concerned about is that it's a lot easier for a builder to come and ask for forgiveness as opposed to having asked for permission. And it seems as though the builders come in, next thing you know, the trees are gone and nobody had acknowledgement that it was happening. And one of the provisions that is in this is the idea that the contractors have to sign off on acknowledging that they have read the ordinance, that they understand it, that they will abide by it, and you can't turn around and say, oh, I didn't know, because they actually are signing off on the fact that they and their crews have read this, and they're responsible for it. And I think that's a great provision. And to reiterate what you said, you've worked an awful lot on this. I think it was Kevin's initiative. John, you put a lot of time into it, working with both the planning board and with us on the township committee, and I think that the residents of the township are going to be convinced that we really are taking all of their concerns into consideration when it comes to this clear cutting and overdevelopment, overbuilding, and lack of concern for the trees, because nothing could be further from the truth.
And the chair and the vice chair of the planning board are still here, so I want to thank them, Nicole, for your leadership, and Jack for your support when Nicole wasn't there. So
can I ask for a clarification on one item? On paragraph 5, trees within 20 feet of the front yard property line shall not be removed if the subject tree or trees are consistent with the existing landscape features along the roadway. So 20 feet from the front property line is potentially 35 feet from the road, right? Because the roadway typically is a 50-foot right-of-way measured from the middle of the street. It makes, if the paving is only 30 feet, then the roadway or the right-of-way extends 10 feet up into the what appears to be a front yard. And then if you add 20 to that, you're 30 feet from the roadway. people are going to have to do it and actually have a survey done and mark this out to remove a tree?
Well, I think what's we have to take in consideration with that is that we're not just looking at the actual dimension of 20 feet. You're focusing on, is there an existing landscape feature along the roadway? So, for
Well,
example,
let's say
for
there is.
example-
Let's say there's a house that has 2 trees in the front yard, and they want to take one of them down. Do they have to give us a sealed survey identifying and pinpointing where that tree is located?
Again, do they need to provide the?
Yeah, how do I know when I go out there whether it's within that 20 feet from the front property line? I don't even know where the front property line is.
Well, one provision, Tom, is that you can't sign off on it on your own.
I understand that, but the applicant, what is the applicant going to give you and I to review to identify that that tree is not within 20 feet of the front property line?
Well, we know that, first we're going to look at that tree, and is it consistent with an existing landscape? Like Roberts, that was a shame that that tree was removed. It was quite obvious. There was a tree line, similar trees going down the road. That's what we're trying to preserve. And so if there's a tree that's obviously right there, we're going to know that, that's a tree we want to save. And even if it's outside of 20 feet, we're going to look at that from other provisions in the ordinance to try to protect that tree. This focuses on more like that one in Roberts where it was probably 25 feet within the roadway. So you're right. So we know the right-of-way is typically 10 feet off the curb. So that's our guidelines. And so are we going to be to the scrutiny of making people get a certified survey? Absolutely not.
Well, I'm asking what's going to be
Absolutely
expected.
not. I could see that, applying the practicality, that's a general rule of thumb, is that your right-of-way is about 10 feet. And so that's where our first inspection would be, is does it fall within the 30 feet? And if it falls within the 30 feet, then...
And then Mr. Sullivan mentioned Linden Lane, which is a private road. How do these measurements apply there?
Well, it is a private road. However, the property still is regulated under our town ordinances. So if the property is within
Yeah, but
the
there's
right-of-way, it becomes questionable regarding...
There is no right-of-way. It's a private road. There's no public right-of-way.
Well, it is a traveled way, and it does have private property on either side. So we do regulate within the property. So we have a right to regulate within from the traveled way within the property lines. That's they're obligated to lot grading. They're obligated for all our zoning ordinance. So you're right. On a private road, then it becomes questionable regarding cutting within a private road. That falls to the association on how they
Last question is the municipality, are we exempt, specifically exempt? Because if there's a tree in the right-of-way, the property owners like to say it's ours, and if it's diseased or dying or considered in any way hazardous, we're frequently asked to remove them. If we remove it, we have to do a replacement?
we were identified as being exempt.
Yeah, I looked, I couldn't find it. And then lastly, and this is a suggestion that I've made previously, I don't know whether this is the time to throw it out there or not, because it will certainly be controversial if you take my advice. But I would like to suggest that you consider making the property owner responsible for everything out to the curb or the edge of the pavement. And that would include sidewalks, curbs, and trees that fall within that zone. They're frequently hazardous liabilities for us, and I would just like to throw that out there for your consideration.
So I think that does need to be addressed, and we've talked about it for a long time, but probably going back several years now, and we haven't really addressed it, for you longer. And I would just, and I agree with you, the only issue I have with that is that in some instances we have made the determination through the grant process or whatever it might be that we are going to put a sidewalk on your property, and now you are telling me that I have to take care of it and be responsible for it and pay for it. So I don't know if Albert can make his legal big bucks try to address that or revolve around it, but that's the tough issue that I think we face in dealing with.
For right now, I'm more interested in the trees. Since this is the tree management ordinance, I'd like you to consider.
But it comes into play with sidewalks.
It will. It potentially, but you could exempt sidewalks and curbs, but you could still say, if there's a tree in the right-of-way in front of your house, happy birthday, it's your tree.
Thank you, Tom.
Are you saying that this is the place to do it now, inside this ordinance?
It's a lot to think about. I wouldn't ask you to do it now. I'm just throwing it out there for you to think about. And then if it is something that you're interested in, I think you kick it to the planning board for their consideration as well.
Not trying to jam it in.
Yeah, very good. No, I don't want to.
I wouldn't jam
like
it.
to get this one at least.
Yeah, I just want to make one comment myself. Yeah, obviously, we've heard concerns from residents about this. We've all noticed the buildings been going in town, in the township itself, and I commend Kevin taking the lead on behalf of the committee with the planning board, and commend the planning board for their efforts as well to not only addressing our residents' concerns on this issue, but hopefully resolving it and making our township a better place, a more beautiful place, because we have more trees. So thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to introduce?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Mr. Solon?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Schwartz?
Yes.
And Mayor Ritter.
Yes.
Public hearing will be scheduled for April 26th.
Thank you. Next ordinance for introduction is ordinance 2018-12, repealing section 30-34A. Any discussion on this item?
Nope, it's just repealing and replacing.
Yeah. Do I have a motion to introduce?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Solon?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Schwartz?
Yes.
Mayor Ritter.
Yes.
And because this one is technically a land use ordinance, the public hearing on this one will be May 31st.
Thank you. Now moving on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have any comments on the consent agenda? Greg, you want to read those off for us?
This evening we have Resolution 2018-78, payment of bills, 2018-79, approving meeting minutes, 2018-80, approving executive session minutes, 2018-81, refunding overpayment of sewer fees, 2018-82, appointing alternate member to the planning board, 2018-83, awarding contracts for tree debris removal services, and 2018-84, appointing deputy OEM coordinator.
All right, any, no comments? I have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Solon?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Schwartz?
Yes.
And Mayor Ritter.
Yes. And as it relates to two of the items on this consent agenda, obviously Nicole mentioned that there was an opening in the planning board. That's been filled tonight with Rob Nevin. And then I'm pleased to welcome John Weston, who's been a volunteer, as you all saw earlier this evening, who's now appointed as our deputy OEM coordinator. So thank you for your service. One of the things earlier this year we talked about trying to reinvigorate our CERT program, our Community Emergency Response Team. And John has tremendous background. Actually, I'm going to embarrass you and have you come up and just talk about your background and who you are and everything else, so people can understand the types of volunteers we have in our community who are stepping up after the winter storms. John had reached out to me, and I reminded him that we had talked earlier this year about building out our CERT program. So, John, thank you. And
my name is John Weston. I've retired from the Port Authority, where I worked for 25 years, and before that, I had a variety of jobs in New York City government, assistant to the mayor, Financial Control Board, Board of Education. And along the way, I had the opportunity to get emergency training, primarily at the Port Authority, and have acquired a reasonably high level FEMA level of training and specialized training in incident management, management command, as well as specialized areas like weapons of mass destruction, which I don't think is going to come up too often here. And one of the things I miss about, while I love retirement, one of the things I like to do is find an opportunity to, what I say is get my hands dirty. It's easy to write a check to a cause and help out that way, but I think it's important, if you have the interest and the opportunity, to actually go out and do something. And I've been looking for an opportunity to use the training I have received in my working life and see if I could bring it out into my retirement as a volunteer. So when I saw all of the town people out in the last major snowstorm when the power was out, I was wondering, like, is there anything I could do to help? So I contacted Mayor Ritter and asked if there were any opportunities, and here we are.
Indeed. So thank you so much, John. And comparing you with our own director, Kevin Sullivan, who did a wonderful job in these past winter storms and these blizzards. I think we got a great dynamic duo, so to speak, leading our town in public safety and emergency safety. So thank you again for stepping forward and throwing your hat in the ring.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
I just want to make one additional point here that we've talked about a lot, and I know former Committeeman Mayor Bailey Brower has mentioned a number of times. A great town is a blending of the ages. You need to have some young, you need to have some middle-aged, you need to have some retired people. And there is a classic case where someone who is retired wants to serve and is able to be here to serve. And if we just have one category of people and we don't cover all those bases, it makes it hard to have a really effective, properly functioning town. So it's a classic point of having that blending of the ages in a town that makes a town special. So,
Thank you.
Thanks again.
I will now open it up for a hearing of citizens. Again, this is an opportunity for any member of the public to step forward and be heard.
Joe Bezralian, Fairfax Terrace. Mr. Sullivan just gave me the perfect pivot, an effectively functioning town. And on the back of many things, but specifically the tree ordinance, I totally agree. It was late last year when there were certain properties being developed, and it really sort of kind of blew up as an issue. And at the very last meeting of 2017, you as a committee said, we're going to look to address this early in 2018. And sure enough, it was being addressed immediately. And here we are after barely more than 3 months, and you have a really good, I guess, replacement ordinance or amendment ordinance on the table. So that's really, I don't think that happens in every town. It certainly doesn't happen at the state level, or definitely not above. So I think I truly appreciate it. I think everybody does appreciate it. And the more people think about it, the more people realize that we have an incredibly well-functioning town. So thank you. So don't take any of these comments, these 3 small comments about the tree ordinance, as negative. They're truly not. I am supportive of the tree ordinance. I thought there might be 3 little places that it could be tightened up, specifically on the individual homeowner with the house built as is in section 22.4-4. It looks to me like the zoning officer does have a lot of leeway to grant exemptions to the minimum tree coverage of a lot. I understand the zoning board should have some leeway, but he or she can grant leeway for the canopy doesn't have room for a tree, or the soil isn't right for a tree. Of course, every tree, there's a tree for every soil, or based on any reasonable homeowner objection. And that's probably by design, but that sounds like a lot of leeway. The way to address that, I think really simply, is either could you look at that language to see, is that too loose? Can that language be tightened up for any significant reason that the homeowner needs to go below the minimum? Or if you feel that language is sufficiently loose and you want the zoning officer to have a lot of leeway to let homeowners go below the minimum, then can the zoning officer then, every time he issues an exemption for a homeowner to go below the minimum tree cover, can he submit a bullet point, like a sentence to the zoning board, just for the record, goes into the record every time they have a meeting, here's the exemption and the number of exemptions, and here's the reason. The reason could be 3 words. So that would be one or 2 ways to address that in 22.4-4. My second point is, this is pretty minor, 22-6.1, on the applications. The application fees, $50 for a tree application fee. That's fair. For a tree removal application, I think that's what it is. But my question is, graduate that application fee for the number of trees that a homeowner wants removed. That's part of the budget of the enforcement. All employees, we want them to be expensive and well-paid. That means it's not going to be easy to run out and check on these things. So if a homeowner wants to remove 4 or 5 or 6 trees, having a graduated fee makes it more likely that in that case, the zoning officer is going to want to go out and look, and with a little bit more budget for that type of removal request, then maybe he or she will more often. So third and final suggestion, and this is really minor, I think it makes perfect sense. Can the zoning officer or one officer annually just provide the numbers of tree removals across all the applications in a given year, and the number of tree replacements that homeowners ask? And that way the township knows, have we lost 100 trees? Have we lost 1,000 trees, 2,000? It's just a matter of simply publicly knowing what our town in the aggregate is doing, not the individual homeowner. So I think it makes extra sense because we want to be able to track that information. The information's so easy to track. I don't think it'll cause any time. In the previous ordinance, we found there was a problem with the whole tree protection committee, a committee to protect trees. It just probably became too cumbersome. We didn't have a committee. So we got rid of all that. I think at very least we can have a little bit of simple disclosure to the public annually so that we know what the level of trees is. Those are my 3 suggestions. Like I said, I'm supportive of the
So
ordinance.
my only comment to that last point is that people frequently plant a lot more trees than they take down. So you're not always going to see a one-to-one. You also see people planting trees where they didn't remove a tree. So overall, I think you're probably seeing more trees planted than are removed, but it just doesn't seem that way because you are changing the aesthetic appearance of a particular lot when you're, just taking that kind of snapshot.
I think that's true because
Environmental Commission do a tree census and count all the trees.
There's ways to do that with aerial infrared.
Yeah,
That's very effective.
Use the Bing and
LiDAR.
do the bird's eye view, takes the foliage out, and you can knock yourself out.
So it's true. Trees are growing all the time, every year. But, for the borough, take a look at the borough. They did some kind of a census, and in the previous 4 years, they had lost a net 900 trees. And some people in the borough had to do an Oprah request to the borough to find out more information about how many trees were lost. To me, that's ridiculous. Why Oprah request to find out? Let's just provide the information once a year. It should come with a disclaimer. This does not represent the net tree loss to the town because homeowners are always planting trees. Just look, we've got all these garden centers that are selling trees. But I think it would give a level of data so we know what's going on. But thanks for considering all this, and thanks again for the ordinance.
And I appreciate your comment, the fact that the committee's been very responsive. As you know, it's one of our goals to be very responsive to our residents. And we always encourage engagement, either participation here in the meetings, in person, watching us at home, or on replay on the website itself. We've encouraged people to interact with us via email, by phone, as Tom has always welcomed people into the offices here. We encourage residents if they have any thoughts, comments, ideas, to email the committee, email myself. Our email address is committee@chathamtownship-nj.gov. People have utilized that in the past to communicate with us, and of course, we always encourage people who want to communicate and have their questions answered and have things change in the town itself. We're always willing to listen and see what we can do to make life better in our township. So thank you, Joe, for recognizing
And then they can come up and have pictures taken with us next April because we'll give them a job.
There you go.
And Joe, I would just say about the fee, it was talked about a lot, and it was actually not because it's near the end of the ordinance, but it was the last item we revisited, probably for the 3rd or 4th time. And it was kind of that balance of what's the proper balance for a homeowner, who is actually going to be taking down a sizable tree. Do we encourage or not encourage, getting the permit? So there was a lot of discussion around it. That's all I'll say.
If I may, I feel badly if there's members of the administration who don't have the time to enforce even on the spot basis. Maybe they don't have the time to enforce. What we really want, because we don't want to have ordinances that really there's so little budget to enforce. So such that a neighbor very close to me built a new house, eliminated all the trees, very small lot, I can see the whole property line by line. There's one 6-inch tree in the front yard where there should be 3. And that's not to the administration. Administration can't run out to every single one, but I think it'd be better if there was a little more confidence that we could say, yeah, by and large, people really are abiding by the ordinance, at least on the homeowner's side. That's just kind of where I came up with that. But so much thought has got into this on many levels. You can see how the ordinance has evolved. I think overall it's definitely evolving much stronger and better for everybody.
Thank you, Joe. Would anyone else like to come forward? Tom, something to say?
No, did anybody mention the seedling giveaway that's coming up in
Yes.
a couple weeks?
I
You did,
Yeah.
right?
Should I
Speak
mention it again?
Yeah.
Speak for the trees, for they have no voice.
Speak for the trees.
They can't speak.
Yeah, so it's the 28th between 9 and 2. First come, first served at the Tanglewood Compost Facility.
Plant those seedlings, and if you stay here long enough, you can apply to cut it down someday.
There you go.
And what will the permit fee be then?
Seeing no one else come forward, we'll close out the hearing of citizens. We are going to be moving into executive session. Greg, you want to read that for us, please?
Resolution.
What's that?
Presumably the
Said we have two things
affordable
for executive
housing.
session.
Mr. Cruz?
All right, 1 second. All right, so we have no executive session. Even better. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Good night, everyone.